Head.
Well, she said last fall, she said we ought to do a lesson together. So then, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I said, well, let's do Easter.
Yeah.
Easter! So anyway, we're doing that today. And it's kind of appropriate because, you know, there is this sort of masculine, feminine sort of dynamic that goes on in our whole spiritual journey. And so I think it's appropriate on the most important Sunday in our Christian calendar that somehow we have something a little bit honoring that divine idea. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are you generally a happy person?
No. Yes. And no. Yes. So here's the, in preparation for this day, you can't really write a sermon. If you're all by yourself, you can write a sermon. You can write a sermon at 6:30 on Sunday morning all by yourself. But when you do something together with another person, especially if it's Steve, you can't do it all by yourself. So we had these conversations to try to prime the pump and figure out what did we want it? What is this divine discontent? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we discovered, at least I think we both did, is that while I feel like I'm generally an optimistic person, you know, I'm usually pretty happy. My smile muscles get a good workout most days, you know. There is this niggling in my life. There is this tug that is almost never silent. Anybody else know about that? Right on.
Yeah.
And we were calling it divine discontent because there's something that calls us. And while you might have a good day and a good life, you know, you like your job, you love your family, you like how you live, and there's something kind of pulling at you sometimes.
Yeah, it's like discontent. We think of discontent as maybe anguish or, you know, suffering or just unhappy in general. You know, and there is a component to that. You know, there's that sort of presence that shows up, but there's also divine discontent.
Yeah.
And divine discontent, I think, shows up a lot differently for us because to me, divine discontent is that discontent that pulls us towards something or pushes us towards something that maybe that is living in us. You know, I remember when I went to the idea of going into the ministry. You know, yeah. I'd like to think that I was pulled towards this light, you know, and to some extent I was, but, you know, when I was thinking back, this was like 30 years ago, and I was thinking back on that, and I remember I was in the insurance business, and I had this great practice, and everything was going well, and I had a nice house, and, you know, all that stuff, and I was doing, you know, really doing well. And this idea shows up. And once this idea sort of showed up in my thought, there was this discontent that sort of came with it. And I remember thinking, well, gosh, I'm happy today. But when I began to think down the road, where do I want to be? Or what do I want my life to be like? Do I want it to be something more than just what I'm doing now? And I think it doesn't matter where we are in our experience, probably most of us want something more than when we are right now. We want to serve more, we want to give more, we want to engage in life more, and so it's that something more that was there, and it's that something more that gives us the energy and the focus to gather everything up and sell the house and close the business and get in the moving trucks and haul the kids and the dogs and the cats and everything from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho to Kansas City, Lee Summit, Missouri. Yeah. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Right.
I mean, I remember my first month there, it rained one night 15 inches. And there's bugs and, I mean, you know, it wasn't fun. But there's this thing that's there that wants to bring you forward. And I think back on, you know, gosh, if I would have not followed that, how would I feel today? And my path from that point forward, and that divine discontent is just kept that energy flowing. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You know, I could speak to a similar thing. and how I got into the ministry, because it was kind of like clawing at the table, you know, because I did have a lot of things that were right, you know, going on in my life. I mean, I wasn't unhappy, but there was that one call, that one thing, that, you know, whispering in the night. Sherry, this isn't it, you know. There's more, there's something else. And, you know, somebody said to me recently, and I just keep saying it to myself, that we can't see around the corner, but God can. So I don't know what I am sometimes, you know, what I'm called to do, but I know that I'm being called somehow. And the other one that's big for me, I may have mentioned to you, I think I did, is being a mom. You know, my husband died. I was in my late 30s. I thought, well, I'll meet somebody. You know, hope springs eternal. I'm optimistic. And I'll get pregnant and we'll have a family, yada, yada, yada. Well, it did not happen. And so I kept wanting to be a mom. And I was exploring, well, how could I do that? And, you know, I mean, I know how, but... Sorry. How could it happen in my life was really the question. And explored, you know, different ways and medical ways. And it just wasn't happening. So I did rituals and prayers and thought, okay, I'm letting go of this. I'm going to surrender. It hasn't happened. It's not in divine order. I release it. I let go. You know, I lit candles and sang and cried, and it didn't go away. Shoot. It didn't go away. You know that feeling, right? You can pray all you want, but if it doesn't go away, you control it. And so then I, you know, after a few years of work and prayer, more prayers, I became Rosie's mother. Now I have a different kind of discontent. And it's all good. You know what I'm saying, right?
Well, it's her soul calling to you and vice versa.
That's right.
There's some sort of relationship going on, and we feel it inside. You know, we walk around with it all the time, and we can be happy. You know, I'm generally pretty happy and optimistic as well. Right. However, you know, there is that sort of little edgy sort of experience that shows up in my experience. Mm-hmm. You know, I think of the Easter Sunday and what this is all about and what Jesus went through, and you know, Jesus' whole ministry was a ministry of dealing with this whole divine discontent idea, because he came into being because of the discontent of the Israeli people, right, who were calling forth a Messiah, somebody to come in the, quote, spirit of David, who was a warrior, mm-hmm, to release them from the bondage of the Roman occupation. That was sort of the presence into which he came. And when he showed up into that discontent. The problem was,
he wasn't what they wanted.
Right.
He didn't show up like a warrior.
No.
He didn't show up like a military leader. He didn't go out there with a sword and a shield. No. He came up like Jesus. And so what happened?